Hello and welcome to another version of City Talk, a production of the Leavenworth Lansing Cable Channel 2. This program is being originated from the studios at the Kansas City, Kansas Community College and will be broadcast from the Channel 2 facilities at Leavenworth City Hall in Leavenworth, Kansas. This is our fourth attempt at demonstrating to the possible users, that is government agencies and persons employed in government in the Leavenworth area, what capabilities Channel 2 has and what can be done to demonstrate the programs that are available through local governments in the Leavenworth Lansing area, and what activities are currently taking place in government. We are bringing you a number of programs here sponsored by the Advisory Committee to Channel 2 just for the purpose of demonstrating our capabilities and to show you that in fact anyone can broadcast a television program. We expect to broadcast programs that are originated not only by the City and County of Leavenworth, but now by the City of Lansing, as well as a number of agencies and associated groups in the community, such as the Leavenworth City Library, the County Health Department, our County Extension Service, the Community Theater of Leavenworth, and other groups. Today we're extremely pleased to have with us for the first time Lansing Mayor Ken Bernard. Ken, welcome.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
Ken, you're a real fixture in government at Lansing. How long have you been associated with the governing body of Lansing?
I was on the council for 4 years, and I've been the mayor for 15 years.
That's some record.
Thank you.
While we might want to just talk a bit about the form of government out there at Lansing, it varies somewhat from Leavenworth, which has 5 commissioners, and Leavenworth elects its own mayor. How does the governing body of Lansing compare with the Leavenworth setup?
Lansing's is a lot different. We have 8 council members. There's 2 from each ward. They're elected on alternating years for 4-year terms. The mayor is elected across the city for a 4-year tour. So every 2 years we have an election of council members, every 4 years for mayor.
All right, and when was your last election?
My last election was 1997.
I guess the other way to ask that question is, when's your next election?
April.
And you're on the ballot. Is that correct?
Not correct yet. Nobody's registered yet.
Why, Mr. Mayor, you and I sat down for just a few brief moments before our program here today to make a little outline of what we thought people would be interested in. One of the things that struck both of us that's remarkable about the city of Lansing is its rate of growth. Population of Lansing now is approaching, what, 8,000 or so?
8,600 roughly.
All right, and compare that to 10 years ago.
10 years ago, we were at about 7,000. When I first went into office in 79, we were about 3,500.
All right, so most of that, of course, those are permanent residents of the city. There's been a lot of residential subdivisions. What else is going on that would be the visible evidence of growth in Lansing?
There are a lot of projects ongoing right now, Mr. Tillotson, as you well imagine. I think the one that the citizens see right now is Gillum Road, which is a new road that we've just completed that goes out to the housing areas. That will be dedicated this summer and is complete.
Now, where's Gillum, just for point of reference?
It's on the south edge of Lansing.
Is that just south of City Hall then?
Yeah.
And goes east and west?
Yes.
All right.
Another east-west thoroughfare that we're very proud of is a West Mary project. It is a 1.2-mile street across new territory that has never had a street before. What this street will allow the city to do is go from DeSoto Road on the far west boundary of the city all the way over to Highway 5 on the east side of the city. It will open up about 240 acres of development, and that project is set to start this summer. So that will be very obvious.
And then where is West Mary again? Give us a reference point.
West Mary is about in the center of town. It's near the schools. It is just south of the old City Hall, if you will, the one-room City Hall that the city used to own. and it will really, it's right through the middle of town, so it'll really open things up.
Okay, and you say work's going to commence on that this summer?
Yes.
Well, that will be quite a difference to the city, I'm sure. What other plans are underway right at the moment?
Okay, we will start again also this summer or early next spring a Fairlane extension. Fairlane is the street right by Pizza Hut. It will go from where Fairlane is now back to American Avenue, which is where the existing ballparks are. So it will give another route to get through there, and there's a stoplight there already. In the long-term goals, we've really got a Main Street safety project. We have sent it up to the Lieutenant Governor. It is about an $8 million project. It probably wouldn't start in the near future, probably about 2004 if it's approved. But what it will do is put a turn lane all the way through town. We would foresee some islands in the center of town, a lot of safety things like additional stoplights, better corners, some turn lanes, and everything through the city of Lansing to increase safety and economic development. So it's really a two-way development for economics and for safety.
I think I noticed that you're building an island there at 4th and Eisenhower to try to make that
Yes.
intersection a little safer.
That is one that's an immediate concern because of the number of accidents that have happened of personnel who are going north on Highway 73, if you will, and then turning left to go down toward Hallmark. And there's been a number of accidents there, so what they're doing is extending that turn lane back about a block, and then they will put an island in there so that you cannot cross, which should add to the safety of the city.
Okay, got any other big projects underway at the present time?
We've got some sewer projects ongoing that are going to be very large. One is the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant within Lansing that we're looking at. That plant is not that old. It's about 20 years old, but we've outgrown it very quickly. We're doing the industrial interceptor that goes out to the industrial park, which is again on the south end of Lansing, where McIntyre Carpet is, again on Gillum Road. Now, Gillum Road is also being improved this summer. It is a joint project between the city and the county, and will lead out to an industrial park. There are two of them there now. Larkin has one that he's developing that will be available this summer. And the Greenemeyers have recently purchased property in that area and will also start that. It's near where the Lansing or the Leavenworth landfill used to be. So that will all be done this summer with the interceptor line. And we are running a brand new interceptor to take care of all the housing development that's ongoing in the Southern Hills, which is on the southwest corner of Lansing. And that interceptor line then will go all the way to the sewer plant with a 21-inch line to increase the capability of the flow in that area.
You mentioned the Larkin and Greenemeyer properties on Gillum. Are you going to be, or are they going to be, or are you both going to be developing industrial park property out there?
We are going to develop industrial property out there. Mr. Greenemeyer has talked about moving two businesses immediately. Two of the businesses he owns, the city will purchase to put in the West Mary Street. We need that property for a holding basin for water. He will then move those two businesses to the industrial park to start it off, and then he's talking about putting in a possible spec building to bring in business in that
How
area.
many acres would you forecast being possibly subject to development for industrial purposes out there?
The Greenemeyer property is about 58 acres, I believe, that's zoned for the industrial park at the time being. There's another about 80 acres out there that is also available. Now, part of that is going to be a construction landfill that the Greenemeyers will put in, but the 58 acres are key to the city development. The Larkin property has about 10 acres.
Well, ultimately, that landfill would be available for development too, I suppose, would it not?
Yes, if it ever gets closed off. Right now, Leavenworth has not closed it officially. It's not been accepted. There's still some work to be done.
Okay,
When
you're
that's
talking
done-
about the old Leavenworth landfill.
Yes, yes.
But I was talking about the construction landfill
Oh,
too.
construction landfill? That's going to be available, I think, as soon as it gets through all the state approvals, which is probably sometime this summer. So that'll be available for anyone in the county. But Mr. Greenemeyer will own that himself.
Okay, so you'd anticipate these, at least as far as the Greenemeyer property is concerned, being a private undertaking?
Yes.
Has the city of Lansing considered participating in building a spec building, for example? Or
Absolutely. We have talked about that. He has also talked to the county about putting in a spec building out there.
now,
And
Lansing
we're considering-
participates in the Leavenworth Area Development Corporation,
Correct.
does it not?
Correct.
All right. Do you pay dues, or how do you participate in that, by the way?
We are active members. We sit on some of the committees. The city administrator, Mr. Smith, is on one of those committees. Jack Devine is on one of the committees, and we are an active member.
As I understand, LAD, basically it's a kind of a marketing arm for either the cities or the county or whomever might have a prospective business or industrial
Correct.
site. Is that right?
That's correct.
So hopefully long-term, what you'd have here is between the city and private developers developing land for industrial sites and then participating with LAD to try to market those. Is that the way it would work?
That's correct. Unfortunately, up to this time, we've never really had property in like an industrial park that we could market through LAD very well. This should be a big boost to the city.
Well, that sounds like it's a very interesting undertaking. Let me ask you about fire and water service in the city of Lansing. My recollection is that fire service is provided by Delaware Township Fire District and water by Delaware Township Water District. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And those date back to when Lansing was maybe a third-class city, or maybe even before it was incorporated. Can you tell us long-term what your view toward fire and water services are for the city of Lansing?
Sure, I'd be glad to. I think Landell is a special administrative arm, if you will, because it was formed through legislation to incorporate Lansing and Delaware Township because they could not be one of the same. As a second-class city, you could not be part of a township. But all of the water department and the fire department were already in place, so a special legislation was done that allowed that to incorporate both the city of Lansing and Delaware Township. I think in the long term, as the city continues to grow, Lansing is starting to look at some type of a professional fire department, professional/volunteer fire department, if you will. We're not sure which way that will go, but I think in the future that is an absolute necessity. With the water, it's never been an issue. The water actually comes from Leavenworth to Landell to the citizens of Lansing, and has never really been an issue and never really been discussed. So the city has talked more about fire protection than they have the water department because that system works very well.
Why, I was just trying to remember, I believe that the Water District number 2 at Baser gets water from the BPU in Kansas City, Kansas. Right. And in between then we have Landell and then Leavenworth.
Right.
Are those all connected in some way?
I'm not sure. I know that when we were talking about annexation south of town, which was a hot topic in the last 6 months,
which we want to talk about here in a minute.
There were several water districts that were involved in that, and we were talking about how we could do that, who would be in charge, and how we would actually connect those lines. But because the annexation didn't go the way we expected, we never pursued that.
Well, you certainly have some long-term issues to address, including kind of the fundamentals of fire and water service, as well as wastewater. What about surface water projects in Lansing? Do you have anything going there?
Surface water projects are probably the most discussed topic within the city of Lansing as far as the council is concerned right now. We have more complaints about surface water than anything else ongoing. And looking at that, there were several prospects that we looked at. One of the things we've done is commission a short-term study to see what's available. We have also looked at the possibility of going to a long-term study to see what we can actually do within the city to prevent the flooding that goes on every year. We've gone to the Corps of Engineers. There's a FEMA study now that's been done to show the water flow in the watershed in the areas. One of the reasons for the annexation project that we undertook was to be able to control the wastewater, or the stormwater, if you will. Fortunately, that didn't happen, so now we'll have to look at ways that within the city we can control that. And throughout the years, in our long-term projects, we have allocated money for stormwater every year for the next 5 years. Not a lot of money right now, but we're looking at ways that we can assist some of the landowners.
What's the source of the surface water problem or the flooding problem? Is that just rainwater, or is it runoff from paved areas, or what is it?
I think it's all of the above. Really, a lot of people think that some of the development that was out in the county has contributed to that, especially to the southwest corner of Lansing, because that's where all the water comes down 9 Mile Creek, 7 Mile Creek, and those tend to flood very much. So I'm sure that everything has contributed. The quick building that we've done out there, all of the development that's going on, probably some poor planning by the city in the initial years because we didn't really understand water runoff, as most cities I don't think do. So all of those contributed to our problems.
Well, I'm glad to hear, and I'm sure our viewers are glad to hear, that you're coping with these problems. Let's talk about something that's coming up immediately here in the city of Lansing, and that's Lansing Days.
Yes,
I have a note here that that's on May the 6th.
that's correct.
Why don't you tell the viewers what that will be?
Basically, Lansing Day started, I don't even remember, 6, 7 years ago probably. Lansing has a very active Pride Committee that really started that. And what we do is they have several booths that go on. We have a car show associated with that. There is usually a dance, there's a fish feed, and it all has to do with pride in the community, being able to support throughout the community. And really, Pride does a great part of that, and they're a tremendous organization that has assisted the city in a lot of ways. And you'll see some evidence of that because the city, the Pride Committee, and others are going to put a new Welcome to Lansing sign on the southern boundary as you come up 73 that will have the capability of displaying banners for events going on within the city, high school basketball games, football games, all of those kinds of things, as well as showing all the various groups within Lansing.
Why, you've got a committee called Lansing Pride Committee?
Yes.
Who chairs that?
There have been several chairs. A very active member is John Bennett. Another one is Rick Dotson, who is one of the council members. Those are two very active ones. Gene Young, who's an old citizen of Lansing and one of the first council members within Lansing. He was on the first council elected in Lansing.
Is that right?
Yes. Lansing was not incorporated until 1955, so we don't go back a lot of years.
Why, another thing that I've noticed, Mr. Mayor, is that you've been building some sidewalks in the city of Lansing.
Yes.
I, for one, think that's a great step forward, so to speak. How do you do that?
Okay, basically, a little bit of background. In the initial days of the construction in Lansing, there was no requirement to build sidewalks. It became very obvious to myself and several of the council members that we needed to do that. So what we have done is we set aside money every year, again, for the next 5 years, to build sidewalks. That is a joint project between the city and the Kansas Penitentiary, or KSP, Kansas State. They provide the labor. We do most of the digging of the sidewalks using our equipment, and then all we basically buy is the concrete. So for about $10,000 a year, which is what we spend, we can lay a lot of sidewalks using that kind of labor. And the sidewalks are pretty obvious, as you can see all along Main Street, up to the country club, going down to all the schools now. So it's become they're very well used within the city.
And I suppose now with new developments, it's a requirement that that be a part of the development
Yes,
scheme, isn't it?
every new development must have a sidewalk, and we're trying to tie them in as we go.
Why, another thing that I noted about Lansing a few years ago was that with respect to new developments, you are requesting dedications of common area or parkland. Is that true?
That's true. We either request dedication of parkland within the new development, or they pay so much per building lot toward the city so that we can continue to improve our parks. We also require the builder to do perimeter streets. And one of those good examples is the development on the southwest corner that Mr. Riley is doing. They have donated money for the perimeter street project, and with that money, some county money and the city money, we're going to improve DeSoto Road, about a mile of it, where it's now dirt from the 4-H road south. It's going to become blacktop this summer. So it's a good project.
So if donations or contributions of public land for parks, or the use of money for parks in other areas isn't the prescription, then it might be a contribution to arterial or collector streets. Is that
Yes.
what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Well, one of the things I'd like to ask you about, and I know it's possibly a sensitive topic, is the annexation issue. I think if most people are like me, they've read a number of stories over many months that, in my case at any rate, has simply led to confusion about what's going on. Why don't you just tell the viewers what the status of Lansing's attempts to annex south of the city are?
Okay, Lansing attempted to annex south along Highway 73 and somewhat to the southwest. As I have already mentioned, in the southwest areas where the flooding has occurred, so we wanted to control that part of the county, if you will, so that we could control the water flow. We wanted to go down 73 for, frankly, developmental reasons, because we see as the racetrack comes in to Wyandotte County, 73 eventually will be all business places, I think. It will be continue to develop. We wanted to be able to control that development. Initially, the county said, no, you're not going to annex anything. We sued in district court. The county has now came back and said, okay, you can have 600 feet on each side of Highway 73 up to within 600 feet of McIntyre Road. What that really means is we got property alongside the highway almost to McIntyre Road, but that's as far as we can annex, because by state law it says you can't unilaterally annex anything 21 acres or greater. And so we stop in the middle of two farmlands, and it kind of ties our hands.
All right, but you did gain a little bit of additional control over some of that ground south of the city on Highway 73.
Yes, we did. About
how far is that? About a half a mile or so?
Yeah, it's about that.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that the issue of annexation will never go to rest because Lansing's not going to stop growing.
No.
Wouldn't you agree?
I would definitely agree, John, and I will tell you, my philosophy has always been that if a city does not grow, it dies. So I have tried to grow, tried to move forward, and I guess what I would tell you, and just in passing, an unpaid political announcement, if you will, that the taxes in Lansing citywide are 2 mills higher now than they were in 1979. So with all of the development, with all of the services that we can provide, we have only had to raise the taxes 2 mills, and that's due to growth.
What's your annual budget for the city?
Annual budget is approaching now $6 million.
I'm sure some of the old-timers from Lansing would just be astounded to realize that that's the kind of money that's spent on community services now. Well, finally, let me just raise one other issue, and that is this Cable Channel 2 and the administrative body that was appointed under a Leavenworth City ordinance to kick it off the ground a few months ago. Your governing body let our advisory committee know about 2 months ago or so that you were interested in pursuing a joint endeavor to include the city of Lansing in the Channel 2 broadcast scheme. Do you want to give us a little history on that and
Sure.
what your thoughts are about it?
I think it's a really great opportunity for the city of Lansing. Frankly, Lansing is not large enough to have their own cable access channel, although under the agreement and the franchise we could do that. I just don't think we're big enough. And I think that by sharing with Leavenworth at a minimal cost and being able to put out Lansing news, Lansing events, things going on in Lansing over that channel, it's a benefit both to Lansing and will help Leavenworth to some degree and make the city better known throughout the community.
Well, we certainly are excited on this advisory committee about the use of Channel 2, and we just think the horizons for it are almost unlimited. And personally, to me, the fact that Lansing wants to extend its hand and join in with Leavenworth in producing quality programming and substantive information for the citizens of both of our communities is a real step forward. And I think the people in both communities should be thankful for the efforts that you're taking and that the City of Leavenworth governing body is also taking. Well, I've been talking with Lansing Mayor Ken Bernard this morning. It's been a real pleasure, Mayor Bernard, to talk to you about what's going on in your city. I guess that's in quotes, but you've been mayor for a long time, and certainly the people in Lansing owe you and other council members a debt of gratitude for all the efforts you put into helping steer the growth of your community. It's a pleasure having you become active in Channel 2. We'll look forward to a real partnership. Thanks for being with me. Our next program on Channel 2 will feature the Sheriff of Leavenworth County, Herb Nye, the Police Chief of the City of Leavenworth, Kansas, and the District Court Judge, Administrative Judge, David King, who will be discussing the development, opening, and use of the new Justice Center for Leavenworth. Thank you for being with us.